You know, it's almost like your birthday with a package from China, so let's go. Before we're going to be deep diving into some very expensive mini PCs or other solutions, I wanted to start off with another interesting option. How you can do 4K rendering resolution with some systems for cheap. And I found one particular mini PC that I really like, and with a simple reason because they are like really cheap to buy, and when you're looking at the 4K rendering resolution, we have some very good performance there. So that's what we're going to be doing first, and also going to be chit-chatting about how to set it up 4K rendering resolution with Bottasera. And yep, we're going to be explaining what is Bottasera and just a quick overview what it is and how we're going to implement it. Let's do a chit-chat about making your own Bottasera drive. If you're going to be combining this, for example, with this random mini PC, yeah, you can just build yourself a retro emulation beast, and a very powerful one. So you can combine Bottasera with so far almost anything when it comes to Windows-based or x86 devices, but you do have different kind of versions out there. So we're having over here a different kind of, let's say, storage capacity. So yep, we can use a 3.5 drive, platter disk 2.5, an SSD, and USB stick. If it's a storage device, you can actually use it, convert it to Linux Bottasera, and you can just plug it into the PC, and we just have the option to emulate or build yourself an image and emulate all kinds of games. And if you're going to be doing this with a very expensive device, yeah, in this case, we can build ourselves a very cool machine that can play, so far, I understand, anything. However, so it depends what kind of storage you're going to be picking, because the platter disks are still very cheap to get. So let's say 2 TB are new, not expensive. So of course a thumb drive is more like a plug and play solution you can bring with you. But like an SSD or a micro SD card, they are like super expensive compared with a platter disk. So take your pick, but if you want to spend a lot of money, you can get yourself an SSD or get a platter disk, and they're like really cheap. And you get like massive storage, and you're going to be needing it if you're having a lot of games like PlayStation 1. You can use an external enclosure, for example, just install Bottasera there, and you can just plug it in through the USB port. Recommended, of course, in 3.0. Then we're having all kinds of plug and play solutions, like a Kinhank hard drive. You can just plug it in, configure this on your PC, and you're just ready to go. A very cool and easy way. Or we're having these complete kits even, and with this nice case, by the way. Yeah, it comes with a hard drive, but also with controllers. The controllers itself depends where and what you're going to be buying. Not the biggest fan of these things, because they're like fake PlayStation 2 controllers with no rumble function, and some of them are just having a chemical smell. They do implement a nice manual explaining how you need to set it up. If you have any problems with the controllers or anything else, everything has been, let's say, put in the manual. But of course there are a lot of, let's say, tutorials out there that explain all kinds of things. Enough chit chat about this, let's get back to the PCs. But first, I just wanted to showcase a cheap option where we can't play every single game on 4K, but we do have a couple of options like PlayStation 1 and Sega Saturn. So I just wanted to do a quick overview of this particular device. Great example. So we can upgrade the NVMe in the inside, and even having dual channel. There's old RAM modules, of course. But yeah, this is what you can expect when it comes to these older devices. Some of them do have the option for a 2.5-inch drive, making it a little bit cheaper. So if you're going to be into the specifications, this was an AMD Ryzen, but it's an AMD Ryzen 3 Pro 2200 GE. But and again, there are many different versions out there, and thanks to the onboard GPU that is, let's say, quite powerful compared with the old Intel ones, that is the reason why we can actually upscale to 4K rendering resolution with a couple of devices, or at least a couple of systems. We do have a lot of options when it comes to the old school games. So let's say if you want to play an old school Game Boy game, you can, when I say upscale, we have all kinds of cool filters you can implement. But I don't want to focus on that part. I just want to focus on the newer generation. So think about PlayStation 1, Sega Dreamcast, Sega Saturn, GameCube, Wii, and all that kind of systems. Because those are really cool if you're going to be having a real 4K rendering resolution going on. We're going to be holding the A button. So if you're going to be into the N64 list, holding the A button now, then we're going to be having the advanced options. At the right over here, we get an extra menu, advanced game options. We have different kind of emulators that we can implement. But some of them we can even do a little bit of an upscaling. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So rendering resolution has been set to 720p. We're just going to be looking into different emulator, let's say, options, and see how far we can push it. And I think we do have like some really cool things going on over here. Before we're going to be deep diving into some high-end mini PCs, I wanted to showcase what happens if you're going to be pushing it to the limit with 4K rendering resolution on GameCube Dolphin and this really old AMD Ryzen chip, where it is still kind of unplayable, it does stutter. With Soul Calibur that it struggles big time. It is playable to a certain level, but you know, this is one of those great examples, dipping to 45 frames per second. So what you're going to be needing to do is just lower at everything. Maybe make it on 2K, or if you have like a little bit better luck, you need to have 1080p. But if you're going to be looking into some more demanding stuff, then we're going to be needing, let's say, 1080p. So let's switch to another game and I'll give you an example what I exactly mean with it. But let's get into the PlayStation part. So start off with some PlayStation 1. And what I love about this machine, that we do have the option for 4K rendering resolution, making this PlayStation 1 game through the dock station looking amazing. And I think that is one of those really appealing things. If you're a big fan of the PlayStation 1 games, and you want to experience those old games in a 4K rendering resolution, you can actually do that in such a low budget, cheap way. So what you can also do is getting into, let's say, higher settings if you just want to tinker with it. Same story, like I told you a couple of times now, is that depending on what kind of game you want to play, maybe the two-dimensional game is even less demanding and we can have it higher than 4K. But so far this looks just great. And that's one of the more appealing things when it comes to a PC. And then we can do it with a low budget product like this particular old school AMD Ryzen. And this makes me personally really exciting. But let's try another game, a two-dimensional fighting game, and yep, we're having over here 4K rendering resolution with PlayStation. So I had the option to do this with Tekken, but I didn't want to do this because I know the two-dimensional stuff is less demanding. But you can see full 4K rendering resolution, great performance on this mini PC. And that's what I exactly mean. We need to do tweaking and tweak your favorite game to a certain level that makes it still playable and look amazing. PlayStation Portable with some crazy 4K resolution with just a basic game. Like I mentioned before, it's always a little bit of a hit or miss with these. So there are so many different games. So if you're having a God of War, there we're going to be needing a completely different setup than this particular game. But getting into some 4K rendering resolution with this awesome game, this works perfectly. Oh, I messed it up. Another game like Pac-Man, 10 times resolution. It's all possible, but again, what I mentioned before, we just need to do a little bit of tweaking with every single game. We can do it on this mini PC without any problem whatsoever. So if Die Hard Trilogy works, there are many games that will run just fine. And think about if you're going to be using a two-dimensional game, that will be maybe have the option, if it was possible in emulator, we can even do it a little bit, maybe an upscaling to higher resolutions. But the Sega Saturn runs absolutely awesome through the Yamaha Zero emulator. So we had 4K rendering resolution with the Sega Saturn, but how about when it comes to the Sega Dreamcast? So let's push this thing. We see some dips now at this moment. But let's get into the gameplay and see how the overall gameplay is. Already has some dips. 40 over here. Ooh. But this is just fun to experiment with it. Where 4K Dreamcast, it's just too much. So we need to do a little bit of a lowering of the resolution. Conclusion is, with those, let's say, cheaper models, we do have limitation where we can actually play some of the things on 4K rendering resolution. But let's say with Dead or Alive 2, with Sega Dreamcast, we need to do a downscaling to 1080p. But it was of course not the point of the video, but I just wanted to showcase what's going on over here.